Welcome back, everyone, to Global Government News. This is the third and final part of this video series titled A Double Dip Recession, Is It in Our Future? And this article comes from London Telegraph from July 2nd, 2010, titled Double Dip Fears as U.S. Recovery Falters. And it says, fears that the U.S. is about to drag the rest of the world into a double dip recession, gripped by investors by the throat this week, plunging markets into a dark frame of mind. So yeah, that's right. It's all our fault. It's the Americans' fault. It's the American people's fault that the whole world is globalized and that a few wealthy individuals who have the power to lend money and to cut off lending decided to create one of the biggest bubbles that Warren Buffett's ever seen, and then make a lot of money like Goldman Sachs and then pop it. And it wasn't just Goldman Sachs, there was other companies that profited, and along with the other companies that bought out other companies, consolidated their little wealth and gained wealth and power and whatnot. So, but that doesn't really matter. It's like I said, it's all of our fault in America, and when all of your governments steal more money from you out wherever you may be living, whether it's in Greece or whatever, or the UK, when the government's stealing money from you and giving it to corporations and telling you that, sorry, this is austerity measures, we got to cut unemployment benefits, just like it and blame it on us. We'll take it. But it says the focus this week switched to the U.S. and a string of terrible data which prompted fears that recovery in the world's largest economy is losing steam and is about to lead the rest of the world into a double dip. See? It says there are concerns, too, that growth in China is slowing and may not be able to provide sufficient support to the rest of the world. And China just recently said that they were going to let their yuan currency appreciate, which would make a lot of their goods that we've been fortunate to have at low prices, it's going to be gone, basically. It's going to be the end of Chinese cheap prices. So, but it says, and lastly, while the fevered panic over the Eurozone debt crisis and pending austerity and social unrest has abated, anxiety has not been erased. I'll just read this one more paragraph. It says the bad news from the U.S. this week included a nasty drop in consumer confidence, a fall in U.S. non-farm payrolls, and plunging home sales. The U.K., reliant on world trade to give its fragile recovery wings as it embarks on an eye-watering fiscal squeeze, would inevitably be pulled down by the U.S. if a renewed slump took hold. And as far as the double dip recession goes, it says a Bank of England report suggested British households are in store for a second credit crisis, which banks and building societies, whatever that is, somebody knows, let me know, expecting to rein in lending yet again. In other words, cut off lending, cut off credit, like they did before when they were panicking and fear-mongering here in the U.S., our congressman to pass that bill. Says Adam Posen, a member of the bank's Monetary Policy Committee, said, quote, the renewal of a severe recession was a very real possibility. And of course, he said much of what determines our outlook will take place beyond our borders. In other words, it's not British, nothing they can do. Just moving on to the next article we'll cover briefly, that's titled Job Openings Drop in May as Hiring Stays Weak. This is from the Associated Press. It says job openings drop in May in latest sign that employers are reluctant to hire. This is from July 13th, 2010. It says job openings drop in May from the previous month and layoffs edged up. Says the decline in job openings come after a sharp rise the previous 2 months, driven by temporary government hiring for the 2010 census and more openings in the private sector. As a result, the number of available jobs has rebounded since the depths of the recession, but remains well below pre-recession levels. And of course, that is your jobless recovery. It says May's job openings are 37% above the low point of 2.3 million from July 2009, but the figure is still far below pre-recession levels of about 4.5 million. It says the improvement of some industries is slowing. Manufacturing, for example, saw openings rise by only 1,000 in May to 196,000, comparing to an average of 14,000 in the previous 3 months. So retailers cut their job openings in April and May after increasing them in the previous 3 months. Many retailers boosted hiring earlier this year after a successful winter holiday shopping season, but have cut back as consumer spending remains weak. Layoffs increased by about 100,000 to 1.9 million in May, the department said, but remain at pre-recession levels. The department said layoffs rose to a peak of 2.6 million in January of 2009. And so this is basically what I have mentioned in the previous 2 videos of this series. One reason hiring is weak is that small businesses, which create about 60% of new jobs, are having trouble getting the credit they need to expand and hire more workers. And the head of the banking cartel, the private banking cartel, Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke, dictator of our financial and monetary system, urged banks to lend more to small companies. Such lending is crucial to our economy. He said banks to loan to small companies dropped to $670 billion in the first quarter of this year from $710 billion in the second quarter. And the ironic part is that many of these banks that would be issuing this credit are the same banks that sit on the Federal Reserve banks system. They're the reserve banks, these big banks, these zombie banks. The government's job openings report echoes other recent data that shows hiring private employers weakened in May and June. And it goes on, it says the economy has grown for 3 straight quarters. 3 straight quarters, but at a weak pace compared to many previous recoveries. Many private employers nervous about the future of the recovery are still cautious about hiring. It uses CSX, the railroad company, the 3rd largest railroad in the nation, as an example, and it says the company is shipping more freight but is worried that economic recovery could slow later this year. It says they've furloughed many of their employees last year but haven't hired them back at all. That's pretty scary because that's the freaking railroad. And so you look here, they're using their own austerity measures. They said instead the company has taken steps such as making trains longer, allowing them to carry more without adding new hires. And so that's what I'm saying, guys. That is the restructuring. And God, I hope the jobs come back. But you know, I hope you know, this is how I see it. As far as the people that run this shit, how they want it to be, how they want our society, our economy, everything to be. And that is, you're doing more for less. And so you have these trains, super long trains with 1 person on there because you're trying to cut back. You have 2 people working in a factory and more machines instead of, you know, more people and less machines. But, you know, that's a whole nother debate. But, yeah, that's basically what it is. You're working for less. Working more for less. So, and this article from Forbes.com was from July 7, 2010, saying housing double dip appears to be underway. It says home values slide again in 2010 with few exceptions. It says the final figures for the U.S. housing market's performance thus far in 2010 won't be officially released for several weeks, but a review of the best preliminary data available indicates that the recovery in home values that began in early 2009 is stalled. A second dip is clearly underway in some places, if not across the entire U.S. This last article is biggest defaulters on mortgages are the rich. And when you think about the rich, who do you think about? Do you think about millionaires, or do you think about billionaires or trillionaires? Because I think about trillionaires and multi-billionaires. I don't really think about the millionaires, but it says no need for tears. The well-off are losing their master suites and saying goodbye to the wine cellars. The housing bust that began among working class and remote subdivisions and quickly progressed to the suburban middle class is striking the upper class and privileged enclaves like Silicon Valley. It says the rich have stopped paying their mortgages at a rate that greatly exceeds the rest of the population. So it's a bunch of crap, right? It's like Ben Bernanke who took on a 30-year loan. You know, it's for show. If you're rich, you're usually not going to have a loan on your house. You're going to own your house. You're going to own your property. And so the super rich, the people that really are rich, the billionaires, the multi-billionaires and trillionaires, they're making money like Warren Buffett. They're making a lot of money. They're making a killing, and they're consolidating, buying things up right now. So I don't consider these people the rich. I'm just trying to start class warfare. Thank you for joining me.